The discovery. The mining vessel. Perseverance drifted through the asteroid belt of System XK-227, its massive collection arms harvesting rare minerals from the tumbling rocks. Captain Maria Santos watched the operation from her command chair, her weathered hands wrapped around a cup of synthetic coffee. 20 years of deep space mining had taught her to appreciate the quiet moments between discoveries. That peace shattered when her sensor operator, a young man named Chen, suddenly straightened in his chair. His fingers danced across his console with unusual urgency. "Captain, I'm picking up something unusual in asteroid 4476. It's not natural formation." The composition readings are off the charts. Maria set down her coffee and moved to look over his shoulder. The display showed a perfect sphere embedded within the asteroid's core, its surface reflecting scanner beams in patterns that made her eyes water. She had seen plenty of strange things in her career, but nothing quite like this. "Bring us alongside," she ordered. "And wake up the science team. Tell them Christmas came early this year." 3 hours later, the mysterious sphere sat in their cargo bay, surrounded by every scanner and probe the Perseverance possessed. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the ship's xenoarchaeologist, circled it like a predator stalking prey. Her excitement was barely contained as she reported her findings to the assembled crew. "This thing is old. Really old. We're talking at least 50,000 years, possibly more. The metallurgy is unlike anything in our databases. But here's the really interesting part." She gestured to her tablet and holographic symbols appeared above the sphere. "These markings are repeating in a mathematical sequence. It's a message, and our translation algorithms are starting to crack it." The sphere suddenly hummed to life, projecting a three-dimensional image into the air. An alien figure materialized, tall and slender with elongated limbs and large, dark eyes. When it spoke, the universal translator struggled before producing broken but understandable words. "Warning to those who find this beacon. We are the keepers of the last watch. Our civilization, along with countless others, has fallen to the silence. A plague unlike any other swept through the galaxy, forcing us into stasis to preserve what remains. If you are hearing this, you have survived where we could not. The plague responds to certain biological markers common to most sentient species. You must be different. You must help." The image flickered and changed, showing star charts and coordinates. Hundreds of locations spread across the galaxy, each marked with the same symbol. The alien continued its message. "These are the refuge points where survivors sleep, waiting for someone who can wake them safely. The plague still exists in dormant form. Only those with natural immunity can approach without triggering its return. We have slept for millennia. Please, if you have the means, find us. Save us." The message ended, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Maria was the first to speak, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they had just witnessed. "Chen, transmit everything to Earth Command. Priority 1. Include our current coordinates and tell them we need a science fleet out here yesterday." Within weeks, the discovery transformed from a mining curiosity to the most significant event in human history. Scientists on Earth confirmed what the message suggested. Humans possessed a unique biological trait, a quirk of evolution that made them naturally resistant to the ancient plague. Their immune systems, shaped by millennia of diseases on Earth, could neutralize the pathogen without effort. The United Earth Council convened an emergency session. Presidents, prime ministers, and military leaders debated through the night. The decision they reached would change humanity's destiny forever. They would mount the largest rescue operation in galactic history. Admiral James Crawford stood before the assembled fleet, 200 ships strong, each one equipped with medical facilities and stasis pods. His voice carried across the communication network to every soul under his command. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to embark on something unprecedented. We're going to wake up civilizations that have been sleeping for 50,000 years. We're going to cure a plague that destroyed galactic society. We're going to show the universe what humanity is made of." The first coordinates led them to a world of eternal twilight, its sun dim and dying. The planet's surface was covered in massive structures, each one a tomb containing thousands of stasis pods. The away team, led by Dr. Tanaka, approached with mixture of excitement and trepidation. Inside the first structure, they found them. Row upon row of pods, each containing an alien form frozen in time. The keepers, as they called themselves, were beautiful in their alien way. Their technology had preserved them perfectly, waiting for this moment. Tanaka initiated the revival sequence on the first pod. The occupant's eyes opened slowly, focusing on the human faces surrounding them. Fear gave way to wonder as the universal translator kicked in, allowing communication. "You came," the keeper whispered. "After so long, someone finally came." "We're humans," Tanaka said gently. "We're here to help. The plague can't affect us. We're going to wake everyone up and cure you all." The keeper's large eyes filled with what could only be tears. "Humans. We will remember this name forever." As news of the successful awakening spread, more human ships departed for the other coordinates. Each location revealed new species, new civilizations preserved in their darkest hour. The architects, massive beings of living crystal who had built wonders across the galaxy. The singers whose technology was based on harmonic frequencies. The gardeners who had seeded life on countless worlds, each species awakened with the same mixture of gratitude and amazement. Humans, a young species barely 3 centuries into space travel, had become their saviors. The medical teams worked tirelessly, synthesizing vaccines from human antibodies, ensuring the plague would never return. But with each awakening came new information. The civilizations shared their histories, their technologies, and their warnings. The plague had not been natural. Something had created it. Something from beyond the galaxy's edge. The ancient records spoke of shadows between stars. Devourers of light who had sent the plague as their herald, Captain Santos, now promoted to Commodore for her discovery, stood in a council chamber surrounded by representatives of dozen awakened species. The Keeper Ambassador spoke with grave concern. "You have given us back our lives, humans. But in doing so, you may have announced your presence to those who sent the plague. They will come." Maria felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity had wanted to help, driven by their nature to explore and assist. Now they faced the consequences of their compassion. But as she looked around the room at the grateful faces of beings who owed their existence to human intervention, she knew they had made the right choice. "Then we'll face them together," she declared. "Humanity didn't wake you up just to let you fall again. Whatever comes, we stand united." The representatives rose as one, a gesture of respect that transcended species. The human who had started as a simple mining captain now stood at the center of a growing alliance. The galaxy was waking up and humanity would be its guardian. The awakening, the transformation of the galaxy happened faster than anyone could have predicted. Within 6 months of the first awakening, human medical ships had reached 47 systems, bringing billions of beings back from their frozen slumber. Each species brought their own gifts to the growing alliance. The architects rebuilt destroyed infrastructure with astounding speed. The singers harmonized communication systems across vast distances. The gardeners began restoring worlds left barren by 50,000 years of neglect. Commander Lisa Park stood on the bridge of the medical vessel Hope's Dawn, watching another world come alive below. This was the 70th planet they had reached, home to a species that called themselves the Memoria. Unlike the others, the Memoria possessed perfect genetic memory, able to pass down complete experiences from generation to generation. "Revival sequence initiated," reported her medical officer, Dr. Rashid. 10,000 pods activating in the first wave. Lisa nodded, but her attention was drawn to an unusual energy reading from the planet's northern continent. "Rashid, are you seeing this? There's something different about the structures up north." Before Rashid could respond, the ship's alarms began blaring. The awakening Memoria were broadcasting a warning, their mental voices flooding the communication channels with urgency. Lisa grabbed her translator headset as the chaos of thoughts resolved into words. "Stop. Do not approach the northern vaults. They are not refugees, they are prisons." Too late. Another human ship, the Endeavor, had already begun the revival sequence at the northern facility. The screens erupted with emergency signals as something went catastrophically wrong. The pods weren't opening normally. Instead, they were shattering, releasing clouds of metallic spores into the atmosphere. "All ships, emergency protocols," Lisa commanded. "Establish quarantine zone around the northern continent. Nothing gets in or out." On the surface, the away team from the Endeavor found themselves facing something unprecedented. The beings emerging from these pods were not refugees, but weapons, biological constructs created by the plague's makers, designed to activate when the plague failed. They were living machines of destruction, their bodies constantly shifting and adapting. Lieutenant Jake Morrison led his squad in a fighting retreat, their pulse rifles barely slowing the advancing constructs. "Command, we need immediate extraction. These things are learning from every attack. They're getting stronger." Back on Hope's Dawn, Lisa coordinated the desperate rescue while the awakened Memoria provided crucial information. Their elder, a being whose memories stretched back to before the plague, shared the terrible truth through the translator. The Devourers seeded these throughout the galaxy, failsafes in case their plague was ever cured. We tried to contain them, mark them, but the plague came too quickly. We could only leave warnings that time has apparently erased. The battle for the Memoria homeworld lasted 3 days. Human ingenuity met alien horror in a contest that would define the future of the Alliance. It was a young engineer named David Kim who discovered the solution. The constructs adapted to energy weapons and projectiles, but they couldn't adapt to something that didn't attack them directly. "We need to change the environment, not fight the constructs," David explained to the War Council. "They're designed to counter aggression. What if we don't give them anything to counter?" Using technology borrowed from the Singers, the humans created resonance fields that disrupted the construct's molecular cohesion. They literally shook apart, unable to adapt to something that wasn't targeting them specifically. The victory came at a cost: 37 human lives, but it provided valuable intelligence about their true enemy. The Devourers were coming. Every awakened species confirmed it through ancient records and ancestral memories. They were beings from dark space, the void between galaxies, who fed on organized matter and energy. The plague had been their first wave, designed to eliminate resistance. Now that it had failed, they would come in person. Admiral Crawford established the Unified Command on Haven Station, a massive structure built by the architects in record time. Representatives from every awakened species gathered to pool their knowledge and resources. The diversity was staggering. Aquatic species who lived in ocean worlds, energy beings who existed in solar coronas, hive minds that spanned continents. Each species looked to humanity for leadership, not because humans were the strongest or most advanced, but because they had shown something rare in the galaxy: selfless courage. They had risked everything to help strangers, asking nothing in return. Sarah Mitchell, Earth's newly appointed ambassador to the Galactic Alliance, addressed the assembly. Her words were broadcast to every world, every ship, every listening soul. "We stand at a crossroads. The Devourers believe they'll find easy prey. Civilizations weakened by 50,000 years of sleep. They're wrong. They'll find something they never expected: unity. Every species here brings something unique. The architect's construction, the singer's communication, the gardener's resources, the Memoria's knowledge, and countless others. But humans bring something else, something the Devourers can't understand. We bring defiance." She paused, letting her words sink in. "On Earth we have a saying: the darkest hour is just before dawn. We've survived the darkness. Now it's time to become the dawn." The preparation began immediately. The architects constructed defense platforms around key worlds. The Singers established an early warning network that could detect disturbances in subspace. The gardeners accelerated crop growth to feed the massive military buildup. The Memoria shared every tactical record from the ancient war. But it was human military doctrine that surprised everyone. Where other species had relied on massive fleets and overwhelming firepower, humans proposed guerrilla tactics, misdirection, and psychological warfare. They introduced concepts foreign to most galactic civilizations: special forces, electronic warfare, and most importantly, sacrifice for the greater good. Captain Santos, now commanding her own battle group, worked with mixed crews of humans and aliens. The integration wasn't always smooth. The crystalline architects found human emotional decision-making baffling. The telepathic Singers struggled with human privacy concepts, but gradually they learned from each other. During a training exercise, Santos watched a human Marine named Thompson teaching close combat to a group of young keepers. Their longer limbs gave them reach, but they lacked aggression. Thompson was patient, showing them how to channel fear into action. "You don't fight because you hate what's in front of you," Thompson explained. "You fight because you love what's behind you." The keeper students exchanged confused looks through their large eyes. One raised a slender hand. "But humans have only just met us. What love could you have for strangers?" Thompson smiled. "That's what makes us human. We don't need to know you to know you're worth protecting." 3 months into preparation, the first probe arrived, a sphere of dark metal that appeared at the edge of the Haven system, scanning everything with invisible beams that made everyone feel cold. It stayed for exactly 1 hour before vanishing, but its message was clear. The Devourers knew about the awakening. They were coming. Lisa Park stood with the other commanders, studying the probe's energy signature. The science teams had managed to partially decode its transmissions. What they found sent chills through every spine, or equivalent structure in the room. The Devourers were not coming as they had before, in scattered raids. They were bringing their entire civilization, a migration of darkness that would consume everything in its path. The probe's data suggested a fleet of millions, each ship a living organism that fed on matter and energy alike. "How do we fight something like that?" asked the architect commander, its crystalline form flickering with distress. Lisa turned to face the assembled leaders, her expression determined. "The same way humans have always fought superior forces. We get creative, we get stubborn, and we never ever give up." The reckoning. The first warning came from the Singer's deep space network, a harmony disruption spreading from the galactic edge, notes of existence going silent one by one. The Devourers had arrived, and they were consuming everything in their path. Small colonies, research stations, even rogue asteroids, nothing escaped their hunger. Admiral Crawford stood in Haven Station's war room, surrounded by tactical displays showing the approaching darkness. The enemy fleet was beyond comprehension, a writhing mass of biomechanical ships that defied conventional understanding. Conservative estimates put their numbers at over 3 million vessels, each one capable of consuming a small moon. "How long?" he asked his tactical officer. 6 days until they reach the outer defense perimeter," came the grim reply. Crawford turned to the assembled commanders. Every awakened species was represented, their faces or equivalent features showing the same mixture of fear and determination. But it was the human contingent that drew his focus. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that had destroyed civilizations far greater than Earth had ever produced. Yet they were smiling. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings," Crawford began, "we're about to face the greatest threat this galaxy has ever known. By all logical calculations, we should lose. The Devourers expect us to line up our fleets and die gloriously. But humans don't do things the logical way." He activated a holographic display showing their battle plan. Instead of a traditional defensive line, it showed scattered forces, hidden bases, and trap zones throughout nearby systems. "We're going to teach them why humans survived on a death world for millions of years. We're going to be the chaos they never saw coming." The plan was audacious. Rather than meet the Devourers in open battle, the Allied fleet would strike and fade, using hit-and-run tactics to wear down the enemy. The architects had built hidden fortresses in asteroid fields. The gardeners had seeded space with biological mines that would attract and poison Devourer ships. The Memoria provided ancient weak points in Devourer technology. Commander Lisa Park led the first strike team. 50 ships, mostly human with alien crew members, jumped directly into the path of the Devourer vanguard. The enemy's reaction was immediate and predictable. Hundreds of their bioships turned to pursue, their living hulls opening massive maws to consume the fleeing vessels. "Now," Lisa commanded. The human ships scattered in 50 different directions, each one dropping specialized beacons created by the Singers. The beacons sang a frequency that human scientists had discovered, a resonance that interfered with the Devourers' organic navigation systems. The pursuing ships became confused, crashing into each other in a chain reaction of destruction. First blood to humanity. But the Devourers learned quickly. Within hours they had adapted to the beacon frequency. Their next wave came prepared, their ships modified with new sensory organs. This was the enemy's greatest strength: biological adaptation. Every tactic worked once, maybe twice, before they evolved a counter. Lieutenant Jake Morrison commanded a stealth destroyer hidden in the rings of a gas giant. His crew was half human, half various alien species who had volunteered for the most dangerous missions. They watched as a massive Devourer harvester, a ship the size of a city, approached their planet to feed on its atmosphere. "Remember the plan," Jake told his crew. "We get one shot at this." They waited until the harvester had extended its feeding tendrils deep into the gas giant's atmosphere. Then they struck not at the ship but at the planet itself. Using weapons designed by the architects, they ignited the hydrogen in the atmosphere. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away, consuming the Harvester and a dozen escort vessels. But for every victory, there were losses. The outer colonies fell one by one. Billions of newly awakened beings fled towards the core worlds. The Devourers consumed not just matter but information, growing stronger and smarter with each conquered world. On the 5th day, Captain Maria Santos made a discovery that changed everything. While analyzing captured Devourer tissue samples, she found something unexpected. The creatures were not truly alien. They were corrupted versions of an ancient species, transformed by exposure to dark space energies. They were like us once, she reported to the War Council. They were running from something even worse. They chose to become monsters to survive. This revelation sparked heated debate. Some argued for attempting communication. Others saw it as irrelevant to their survival. It was a young human pilot named Amy Chen who proposed the unthinkable. What if we don't try to destroy them? What if we cure them? The room fell silent. The idea was insane. How could they cure an entire species that had chosen its path millions of years ago? But human history was full of insane ideas that worked. Dr. Tanaka and her team worked feverishly with the gardeners and Memoria to develop a biological agent. Not a weapon, but a restoration virus that could reverse the dark space corruption. The challenge was delivering it to millions of enemy ships while fighting for survival. The final battle began at dawn on the 6th day. The Devourer fleet had reached Haven Station, their numbers darkening space itself. Admiral Crawford gave the order, and the Allied fleet engaged. It was chaos on a scale beyond imagination. Thousands of ships danced through space, weapons fire creating a deadly light show. But this was a distraction. While the main fleets clashed, small human ships performed seemingly suicidal runs at the Devourer command vessels. Each one carried canisters of the restoration virus, designed to explode on impact and spread through the organic ship's shared consciousness. Jake Morrison piloted one of these ships, diving through fields of defensive fire. His alien crew worked in perfect harmony, the singers maintaining shields while the architects rapidly repaired damage. They reached their target, a massive Devourer dreadnought, and Jake made the choice that defined humanity. "Tell my family I love them," he said, ramming his ship into the enemy vessel. Across the battlefield, dozens of human pilots made the same sacrifice. The restoration virus spread like wildfire through the Devourer fleet. Ships began to convulse and change, their dark metal becoming bright, their hunger subsiding. But the Devourer's leaders resisted. The ancient intelligences that had chosen corruption fought against the cure. They turned their weapons on their own transforming ships, trying to stop the spread of restoration. The battle became 3-sided. Allied forces, corrupted Devourers, and those being restored. It was then that humanity's true weapon revealed itself. Not technology or tactics, but inspiration. The restored Devourers, remembering what they once were, turned against their corrupted brothers. They had been shown a path back from darkness, and they took it. Lisa Park, commanding the battered Hope's Dawn, received a transmission that made her cry. It was from one of the restored Devourer ships, its voice no longer a hungry shriek but something almost musical. "We remember now. We remember beauty. We remember love. Thank you, humans. Thank you for showing us the way home." The tide turned. The corrupted Devourers, now outnumbered by their restored kin and the Allied fleet, began to retreat. But Admiral Crawford wouldn't let them escape to spread their darkness elsewhere. He gave one final order: all ships pursue and cure. "We don't stop until every last one is saved or destroyed." The chase lasted weeks. Through nebulas and around black holes, the Allied fleet hunted down the fleeing Devourers. Some accepted restoration. Others chose destruction rather than change. But eventually, the last corrupted ship was cornered in a dying system at the galaxy's edge. Maria Santos, aboard the flagship, opened communications with the last Devourer lord. Its ancient intelligence had witnessed the transformation of its entire species. Why? It asked, its voice echoing with millions of years of existence. Why would you save those who tried to destroy you? Maria's response was simple. Because that's what humans do. We see suffering and we try to help, even when that suffering has teeth. The last Devourer was silent for a long moment. Then slowly it accepted the restoration virus. As the darkness peeled away from its form, revealing something beautiful and ancient beneath, it spoke one last time. "Perhaps that is why the universe allowed you to survive, to be its conscience when others forget compassion. The war was over. The galaxy was forever changed. The awakened species looked to humanity not as conquerors but as teachers. Earth, the small blue marble that had produced this remarkable species, became a pilgrimage site for billions. Standing on Haven Station's observation deck, Admiral Crawford watched the first devourer ship, now restored and gleaming, take its place alongside the Allied fleet. They had work to do. Worlds to rebuild, civilizations to restore, and a galaxy to heal. Ambassador Sarah Mitchell joined him, her expression thoughtful. "We changed everything," she said. "A species barely 300 years in space, and we saved civilizations millions of years old." Crawford smiled. "We didn't save them. We reminded them how to save themselves. That's the human gift. Not our technology or our immunity to ancient plagues, but our stubborn refusal to give up on anyone." As the stars shone brighter than they had in 50,000 years, humanity took its place not as rulers of the galaxy, but as its guardians. They had proven that sometimes the youngest voice carries the oldest wisdom, that compassion is the greatest strength, and that no darkness is too deep to be touched by light. The galaxy had been silent for millennia. Now, thanks to humanity, it sang again.